Hi, my name is Layla Lorenzen. This is a kindergarten lesson plan for math. So the big idea or essential question on this is, can students identify different quantities and groups, and can students count from 1 through 10? The objective is to make sure students can count and identify different amounts, and the objective is also very similar. Students will be able to count to 10, and students can use critical thinking skills by thinking when looking at the quantities, like which is bigger, which is smaller, and kind of going off of that. Materials needed for this would be Starburst candies and the paper worksheet that goes along with it. The technology needed would be a projector or overhead camera so students can see what I'm looking at. So the introduction, I would explain to them that there are ways to see groups that have more than others and make it engaging by telling them it is important to know how to find which groups have more. So if there's a chance for them to pick a bigger group of candy, they can. So to start, there will be 4 different piles under the projector that they can see. Each of them will be labeled 1, 2, 3, and 4, a pile of 10, 2 groups of 5, and a pile of 3. And then on their handout, they will have 1, 2, 3, and 4 listed on it, which correlates with the different groups under the camera. And before the lesson starts, I will ask them to put their guesses down on how many are in the different groups. This is so they can kind of get an idea of how close their guesses are to the actual amount. And as a class, we will count the different groups one at a time, and the students will write the amounts underneath their guesses on their papers. And after we have counted all the groups together, I will ask the students to discuss which had more, which had less, and if their guesses were right. And then after they discuss, we will come back together as a class, and by raise of hands, I will tell what they think had less, which had more, which is equal. And then once they share what they think, we will review, and each student will get a starburst. The closure of this is to remind students that in order to find less, more, or equal groups, that all that has to be done is to count the groups individually. And in order to assess students, they will get a handout that has different groups of items and ask students to count the amounts on the paper and say which has more, which has less, which is equal. And some accommodations. One accommodation would be if a student is hard of hearing or has an issue seeing, put them closer to me or closer to the front of the classroom. If a student has trouble counting, to check on them throughout the lesson. Another accommodation for this could be to make sure there are no allergies, but the candy mentioned is allergen-free. And when teaching this lesson, I think it would be helpful to go over numbers 1 through 10 with students beforehand, just so they can get kind of a refresher on their numbers. And yeah, so to start the lesson, just kind of give them a rundown on what the purpose of the lesson is and what we'll be talking about. Some issues during the lesson might be if students kind of forget their numbers or get distracted by candy or something during the lesson. And then to ensure that students remember what they were taught, I think as the school year goes on, this is a lesson that can be repeated by doing it with different objects, with different things, and with higher numbers. So just by reviewing this lesson and giving them small assessments on it will show if they actually remember what was taught. Thank you.